in the three principles psychology, they talk a lot. I mentioned before. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but they talk a lot about thought. And Sydney Banks, he used the terms divine thought and personal thought.
Yes.
He was referring to the ego.
Yes, yeah.
And the person who I'm talking about, he asked me to ask you about divine thought.
Yes.
He just asked Mooji about divine thought.
Okay. I'm happy. We talked about personal thought, egoic thought, which comes out of the conditioning. When I often use this expression that when consciousness has painted a self-portrait of itself as a person, and then it lives in that self-portrait as a person, which is also consciousness, but a much more condensed, much more contracted form of consciousness. And it is completely caught up in its own projection, its own self-image, its own selfishness, actually, and its own limited view of life, because greater than its limited view threatens it, actually. He needs to have this kind of way, you see. So he's also able to observe, but he's observing with self-interest all the time. So the observing is biased. So it hasn't come to what I call like the divine observing, which is impartial, impersonal. It means it's just seeing. It's not seeing and interpreting. It's just seeing. And when we talk about, like, now you use the term divine thought, and immediately something comes inside my heart. Divine thought is not about language. It's not about words, because if you speak English, when a divine thought, it will come in English. It's not going to come in some, sort of like, some other strange thing. It's just, so it's not the words, not the thought. Divine thought means that it comes without mind. It comes through inspiration. It comes totally like intuitively. And in a sense, it doesn't happen until it happens. It's not like it's a saved up thing and then it's waiting to say, okay, divine thought. It's just there, and it works with common thought, the flow of the mind that is searching for something. And it is, you could call it wisdom also, meaning that it is totally appropriate to the need of the moment. It is totally there, not to impress, not to contest, but somehow to facilitate understanding. It comes from a much higher vibration than when human beings are talking with each other, coming from the same self-reference place. Divine thought is totally spontaneous and intuitive. But when it lands, it is not a stranger. It comes with a sort of a force that is, I would say, it is unchallengeable. It has that kind, it just comes inside the heart, and it just creates an opening. It just creates opening. So it's not an argument. It's not an argument. So that would what I would say is that divine thought. It doesn't exist until it delivers itself.
Comes from presence.
Yes, it arises out of presence, like that. Yeah.